Let's get into today. Today we're going to talk about the winter season that we're actually in because we're in the latter half of winter. It's colder in a lot of areas than it is any other time of the year. Um, Dallas, it's going to be 68 today, so I'm probably not talking about here, but for the majority of the like northern states and Canada and places like that, things that are just a little further north, this is the coldest season of the year. So I thought this would be absolute perfect timing to talk about raw vegetables versus cooked vegetables. What are the benefits? Why do we cook things versus eat them raw? Because aren't they healthier raw? Isn't that isn't that what everyone's telling us? Not so much. We need to take a step back and really go through this. So let's talk first of all about the seasons. So we had talked in the fall about how in winter, your body's trying to bring warmth to itself, right? It's trying to warm its internal structure. So you crave more of the comfy foods. You crave things like squashes. You crave things like mac and cheese and soups, like hearty soups. We're talking New England clam chowder. I've got to find a way to make that dairy for you guys. So, side tangent, if you know, let me know. I am all ears. Um, Besides that, you've got the New England clam chowder, you've got Manhattan clam chowder, just those hearty vegetables, chilies, things that not only bring warmth to your body, but they just feel comfortable when you eat it. It's like they wrap you in a hug, right? That's what you crave nowadays. And it's normal. So if you're coming into the new year and you're thinking, oh, I can't eat any of these foods, it's not healthy for me, no. The dish that you make, the meals that you eat, it's not necessarily that the meal is not healthy, it's the preparation and whether you're using whole foods versus processed prepared foods. Because there's a lot of produce departments now and meat departments that are actively helping us. They're chopping up vegetables for us. They're chopping up fruits for us. And yeah, they're a little bit more expensive, but if you don't have the time to chop up your own produce, just buy it. It's still healthy. It's still the whole food. You're going to want to wash it, obviously. But I mean, that's easy to do. You get a little bit of water, you get a little bit of vinegar. In the foods that absorb the vinegar, it will be cooked out. So don't worry about it. A little bit of vinegar goes a long way. And in some cases, actually, some people are using baking soda. I don't think with potatoes, but I think with some of those thicker skins, so like apples and things like that, they're using baking soda and a little bit of vinegar, which creates its own reaction. It bubbles. So it helps clean a lot of that wax. And yes, it gets sprayed with wax. That's why they're so shiny in the store. Crazy. All right. So here we are. We're in winter, right? And I am on the floor. For those of you that know me well, I am a floor sitter, so it helps that there's a nice fireplace behind me. And yes, this is a real background. This is my hallway and my fireplace. I like sitting here. It's nice and warm and toasty. So it's warming me, like your food should be warming you right now. But let's get down to these plants, eating them raw versus eating them cooked. What's the whole deal with that? All right, so there's a I'm not going to say fad. There is an eating modality. There we go. There's an eating modality where what people are eating are raw foods. Now, in some cases, what raw actually means is blanched. It's not fully cooked, it's just blanched to release all the micronutrients, the healthiest constituents found within that plant. A little bit of herbal medicine before we really delve too deep into this. The way plants work, some of them provide you constituents right out. Pluck them, eat them. Berries are a great example of this. Some plants protect their healing mechanisms. They protect their vital nourishment, right? And their vital nourishment are the micronutrients, the vitamins and the minerals that we thrive on, that we need in our diet. Hence why we eat these foods, right? It's why our brain craves these foods. Now, because these vital nutrients have to be released, there's only a few ways of doing that. Now, you could chemically process them, which we all know is not the healthiest method. What has been traditional from probably the dawn of time, the dawn of human time, is heating. So, when you're eating a raw diet, a lot of times, if something has to be released from a heating element, it's a blanching process. It's a quick cook. So, like, you're literally dipping it in the water, dipping it in ice, done. Okay. And here's why. In a lot of cases, especially with the darker foods, you'll find that as you heat them, fragrances start coming out. They get very aromatic. Their color changes. It gets more vibrant, more appealing. Have you ever noticed that? So, our brains like to attract us to certain things, right? And the plants in this world understand this. This is just a cycle of nature. The plants, when they release the happy constituents, the things that are healing, the things that are nourishing, not harmful, but nourishing, their color becomes more vibrant. Their aromas become much stronger. If you've ever sauteed spinach, you know it happens quick. And it goes from just a green to this bright, vibrant, beautiful green. And your entire house will smell like spinach. Asparagus is the same way. And they're not alone. So let's break this down. So what happens when you're heating it is you're breaking down some of the fibers within the vegetables. And when you break down certain fibers within those vegetables, then the constituents are released. Okay. Now, with minerals are one of those things, calcium, iron, potassium, things like that, really, really aren't released to their full potential. If they're released, you can still consume them in foods, but you don't receive their full potential until you heat them. Okay. Fat soluble, same thing. So there's not much of a difference between raw and cooked fat soluble. It's more an absorption in the pairing of other foods, if that makes sense. So vitamin D does really well if you're pairing it with calcium. Okay. That's why you see milk with calcium and vitamin D. Obviously, it has vitamin D and calcium in that, but like when you're looking at the non-dairy foods, you notice that there's calcium, that there's vitamin D. Sometimes it is added, and that's really the reason why is vitamin D and calcium kind of are best friends. They're besties. They like to hang out together. The water soluble vitamins, things like your B's, your vitamin C's, your antioxidants, um, your beta carotene, things along those lines, those can be extremely susceptible to damage when they're heated. So you have to be very careful with those because the higher the heat, the more those nutrients are depleted. So what you want to do with those is low and slow. So tomatoes, you know how they always talk about, they being chefs, always tell us that when you're making the sauce, you want to make it so that you're cooking it low and slow so that all the flavors infuse. Well, there's actually a dietary benefit to doing that as well. The lower the heat, the longer you cook it, the more absorbable the nutrients within your sauce. So you could make a marinara with a ton of vegetables, cook it low and slow, drop it in a crock pot, low for 4 to 6 hours, let it cook and simmer while you're at work or while you're working in your office. Dude, your house will smell phenomenal, first of all. And second, you will have retained and improved or increased the absorbable nutrients available to you within that sauce. So while you're looking at eating healthier this season, right? Everyone hits, not everyone, but a good portion of our society hits January 1st. And the very first thing that they think is, I need to get healthier. This needs to be me getting healthier. I'm going to eat salads every day. I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to drink my water every day, which, yes, we need to do. But you don't need to have you don't need to have salads every day to have vegetables. And in some cases, it's actually healthier to have the cooked version. So go get yourself some whole grain noodles or gluten-free noodles if you need to go that route. There's actually some veggie noodles out there. Austin actually has a company called oh, Kim, I'm so sorry. I know you started this company and now I'm like blanking. The Texas Pasta Company. I don't know. I'll put it in the comments because I know what I'm talking about. They're not alone, there's several others, but what they do is they grind up the herbs, they grind up the vegetables that are found in their pasta. So if you're in Texas, you can get Texas pasta, spinach, garlic, spinach, basil, garlic. It actually tastes like the marinara sauce, but there's vegetables inside of the noodles. Okay. That just scared the dogs. Sorry, puppies. So now you're tripling up on those vitamins and minerals. You're cooking something low and slow, the pasta, the sauce, because you can put the pasta inside sauce and let it cook. Didn't know that for a very, very, very long time, but you can do that. And that will boost your vitamin mineral absorption, right? The availability of it. You'll get some fat soluble vitamins in there. You'll get some water soluble in there. You'll get minerals galore, and you will have a nice, tasty Italian dish for dinner. Pop in a little glass of red wine, and you have the perfect dish. It's date night right there. Red wine occasionally, nothing wrong with it. The resveratrol, you all know. That is cooked using a fermentation process. And that's another way of releasing the constituents found within the foods. Okay. So things like kombucha, things like pickles, wines, vinegars, those have all been fermented. So during that fermentation process, it's not necessarily that they needed heat added. Heat was created during the fermentation process, which allowed for the nutrients, micronutrients, to be released. That's why they're so helpful and beneficial to our health. So let's look at the differences between raw versus cooked. What are the benefits? Because I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that you have to cook everything. There's a lot of vegetables and, fruits specifically that are more nourishing and more nutritious to us raw versus cooked. And you can tell the difference. We'll talk about that in just a second. We're going to talk about how you can tell without needing an encyclopedia or someone telling you what to do or a list of foods. Okay, it's actually relatively easy, but we'll get there. And if you've been paying attention, you already got the answer. All right, so here's the difference between raw and cooked. Okay, raw, there's a greater absorption of folate. So for women out there, if you are trying to eat fruits and vegetables, to increase your folate consumption, then you want to try and eat them raw, not necessarily cooked. There's kind of a conflict here because when you cook certain foods, things like dark leafy greens, cruciferous foods, what happens is your calcium is released. There's a higher volume of calcium that is released that is available to us as an absorption, right? Easily absorbed once that food has been cooked, it's released. And our body just loves it because it's easy to digest and it just gobbles it right up. But once you heat it, now you're losing some of that folate. So you've got to figure out what's going to be best for you. Okay. Raw in a lot of foods protects against oxidative stress. So what we're talking about is things that are creating cancerous situations. Again, there's balance. You need the cooked and you need the raw. Because while you do have a lot of protections against this oxidative stress, some of the cancer fighters are not released until they're heated. It's a toss up. All right. So raw foods are actually, and I wrote these three down because these are very important elements. Okay. When you look at raw, and here's what I'm talking about when I say raw. Raw diet means it's either completely raw, it has been fermented, or it has been blanched, like quick heat into the ice, done. Okay. That means that while eating straight up raw, not cooked, not fermented, still provides you these benefits, the cooked version is going to provide you some extra benefits. So, like the folate and the calcium, you can find a balance within that. Um, spinach is a good example of that. Eat some of it raw, eat some of it cooked. You'll find a balance in there. With raw, guards against three main elements that I really wanted you guys to know about. So neurodegenerative diseases. So things like Alzheimer's, dementia, memory loss, things like that, just brain health in general. It's going to protect against the degeneration of it. So, we get older, our brain, it needs exercise, just like our bodies need exercise, right? Chronic inflammatory diseases and illnesses. We're talking about your autoimmune conditions, the dysfunctions, the illnesses. We are talking about chronic stress. We are talking about diabetes. We are talking about other chronic illnesses. We're talking about cancer, things that really attack the body hardcore, and some of those things that just don't let go. All right. Raw foods also help to protect against depression and other mental illnesses. So, effectively, if you've been paying attention for a while and you're kind of piecing all these things together, eating a mostly raw diet helps you create all of these protections, right? Doesn't necessarily mean you're getting protection from all of it. So let's go with the cooked. So when I talk cooked, we're talking blanched, sauteed, grilled. Okay. It is easier to digest. It is much more absorbable. So if you're having any gut health issues at any stage of the game, which the gut health leads to all of your chronic inflammatory illnesses, all of them, you guys, it can also lead to the neurodegenerative illnesses. If your gut's not happy, if your gut's not healthy, it goes this direction. It's overworking. It feels like it's always under attack and under trauma. So stress responses are in full effect, right? So when you cook your food, what you're doing is you are releasing the vitamins E and K. Okay. E and K are not absorbable until that food is cooked in some way, shape, or form. Right. It can be blanching real quick, which is still considered raw diet. Um, Cooking increases the body's ability to absorb minerals within our foods. All right. Now, in a 2010 study where half the crew ate whole food diet, half the group ate a raw food diet, what they found was while the raw food group consumed many more vitamins and minerals, the whole food group that just prepared its food in the healthiest of ways, blanching, low and slow, things like that. It's plant-based food, not necessarily meat. The whole food group actually had better labs. Their bodies were more nourished. Their levels were within healthy ranges. Um, they were more ideal to a healthy body. Their gut health was better. So they're pooping, they're peeing, they're cramping, any of that within your gut, all that dysfunction, all the disruption and the uncomfortableness, it wasn't present within the whole food group. Raw food had categories and had smaller groups of people that did have these side effects. So how do you know which one's better for you? Doesn't matter. You want raw and you want cooked. Okay, you want some. Now, if you want to stick with the raw diet, then some of your food is going to have to be blanched just because it releases the massive amounts of micronutrients in an absorbable form for our body to use. If it's not usable, it goes out with your poop or it goes out with your pee. You pee or you poop it out, you sweat it out, it goes through the lymphatic system. So you need both. And in the winter, during this time when it's the coldest of seasons, warm foods help create warmth, right? Even if you take a cooling food, something like cucumbers. Cucumbers are a tremendously chill food. And I mean temperature wise, not like chill or chill. Sorry. Doing the I love you with the boys. Um, so if you're eating cucumbers, I mean, you can blanch those actually. They're not bad. They do stay crispy, but you do want to do the dip in, set to the side. Like make sure they are in ice water quick, right? Sprinkle it with a little cayenne, a little bit of like Himalayan salt. Oh my gosh, you got to die for. Little kick. Oh, so good. Little lemon juice on them. Okay, so why am I saying raw versus cooked? Spinach, just as an example. So spinach has 30 milligrams of calcium when raw. Toss it in a pan, becomes vibrant green, becomes very aromatic, and it releases 245 milligrams per cup of calcium. So if you are trying to improve the amount of calcium that you consume, you want to cook your spinach. If you need folate, well, you need calcium, which most of us women need. With or without a uterus, you guys, we need this. If you need these things, have some dark leafy greens that are raw and have some that are cooked. Because spinach is just one of many dark leafy greens, and all of them really provide this level of calcium. They have iron, they have vitamin D, they boost minerals and nutrients, minerals and vitamins galore. Cooking them releases the massive amount, okay? The most that you can get out of that food is through a cooking process. How do you know whether you should cook the vegetable? If you go to cook the vegetable, so let's say you get them, and yeah, it's green or it's purple or it's hard, kind of hard to chew, and it softens up when you cook, or it's easier to digest after you cook it. Those are good signs, but to be able to tell right off the bat, they become much more aromatic. They become much more vibrant. Their color it goes from it's green or it's blue or it's purple to oh my gosh, it is like bright, vibrant green. It is bright, vibrant purple. It is bright, vibrant orange. Sweet potatoes become much more orange after you cook them. Ever notice that? All of a sudden, this sweet potato that was orange, was okay, becomes orange. And the purple ones, my goodness, the like royal purple that comes out of the purple sweet potatoes is phenomenal. So those are foods that should be cooked because it is a healthier absorption for our body. So there's always choices. And when you're looking at raw versus cooked, these are all about choices. So let's go over the top 10 foods that are more nutritious when cooked. Okay. And then we're going to go over them and I'm going to explain a little bit about why they're better cooked. So let's go through it. You ready? Dark leafy greens, asparagus, tomatoes, mushrooms, potatoes, legumes, all of them. Carrots, celery, green beans, and cruciferous foods. Things like broccoli and cauliflower. I know asparagus is cruciferous, but we're talking about the broccolis, the cauliflower, the baby broccoli, the bok choy, things like that. So those are your top 10 foods. The dark leafy greens, asparagus, tomatoes, mushrooms, potatoes, legumes, carrots, celery, green beans, cruciferous foods. Why? That's what I wanted to get into. I wanted to give you a little bit of science with this list. So with the dark leafy greens, and I bring up spinach a lot, but spinach is something that a lot of people eat all the time. Spinach and kale. I'm not a kale fan, so I always go straight to spinach. But kale is exactly the same. You release a large volume of its cancer fighting properties, including its calcium, including its vitamin C, its iron, when you cook it. And you don't cook it for very long. It's very quick. You want your vegetables crunchy, people. Do not boil the crap out of them. Do not steam the crap out of them. You do not want limp vegetables, even cooked. You want them crunchy. It triggers your mastication. And when you masticate food, it triggers your hunger signals. The whole leptin ghrelin, hunger, satiation. We need to trigger satiation. Satiation is triggered when we start chewing. All right, so back to this list. So dark and leafy greens contain oxalic acid. There we go. I don't know why that's so difficult for me to say all the time. What this does is it blocks the absorption of calcium and iron. So when you're eating the dark leafy greens raw, then the calcium and the iron that you're consuming is difficult to absorb. Not saying that you don't absorb it, but it is very difficult for your body to absorb because it has to get through the gunk. And I mean, it's vegetable, so like it's healthy gunk, but it still has to get through the gunk to get to the good stuff. So when you cook it for just even a second, pop it in there for 5 to 10 seconds, you're releasing this block. You're removing it. And by removing it, it takes your absorption from about 5% to 53+%. Yes, studies. If you want to know what studies they are, I'll put them in the show notes. What you're looking for with dark leafy greens is something quick, a quick cook. Does this mean you shouldn't eat them raw? No. The mastication process of it is really good. And there's still some protective benefits of eating dark leafy greens raw. To receive the max amounts of calcium, iron, and the minerals found within dark leafy greens, you do want to cook them for at least a few seconds. That's it. Now, what about with asparagus? So with asparagus, you have a ton of cancer-fighting antioxidants found within asparagus. They increase their absorbability and their usability by the body when you cook them. The best way to cook them, in my opinion, is to grill them. Just a little olive oil over it, sprinkle it with a little salt, little pepper, and garlic. You guys put garlic in it. Oh my gosh, you have the king of healing, and it's absolutely delicious. Grill it for a few minutes. It gets a vibrant green. The minute you see the vibrant green, take it off the grill. It will continue to cook, but take it off the grill so it stays crunchy. Asparagus is one of those foods. So if you eat asparagus, your pee is going to smell funny afterwards. Just this. It smells more fragrant or more, the smell becomes greater in intensity when you cook it just the right amount of time because you're now absorbing all of these things. And what you're getting rid of is the waste in the asparagus that your body can't use. Asparagus actually contains it increases the level of two types of cancer fighting phenols. And phenols are amazing biological components found in all plant life. All plant life. Kenzie. Thank you. Next up is tomatoes. Go. Go. Now, I like my tomatoes raw, just from a taste perspective. I like raw tomatoes. They don't contain the greatest amount of volume. Tomatoes should be cooked. They should be at least blanched, at least. The lycopene within it is an antioxidant, as a lot of people have heard over the years, tomatoes, lycopene. Red bell peppers, Same thing. Okay. They're antioxidants, they're anti-inflammatories. It really truly increases the protection that your body has over cancer, over heart attacks, any other heart conditions. It helps circulation within your blood, um, within the body in general. It is actually a fat soluble micronutrient. So if you're pairing your tomatoes with some sort of a healthy fat, something like olive oil, avocados, things like that, nuts, beans, those things, and now you're also increasing the absorption. Okay. Um, Cooking helps to release those fat soluble nutrients. So when I'm eating my tomatoes raw, I'm not getting the best benefit from it. I have to eat sauces in order to do that because I don't like cooked tomatoes, you guys. If you're like me, eat your sauces, get your cooked tomatoes, get those cancer fighting nutrients into your body, get the protections into your body. There is a large amount of vitamin C in tomatoes, and that is actually released raw or cooked. It's There's no difference there. But the anti-cancer, the anti-inflammatory, the fighters, protectors, all of those are released when the tomato is cooked. So that's what you need. You need to cook it. Mushrooms are up next. Now, mushrooms are kind of a unique food. So there's toxins found in some mushrooms. And part of the reasons we started cooking mushrooms way back when was to release the healing medicinal benefits of it. Men and women, sorry, they used to cook medicine. My brain's going faster than my mouth. They used to use mushrooms in medicinal forms. It wasn't just part of a diet, it was a medicinal food, right? It was a medicinal plant. And what they found was if you provided the mushroom cooked or raw, the nutrients are the same, but the mushrooms contain carcinogens, and those toxins need to be cooked out. So when you're cooking mushrooms, what happens, like when you saute mushrooms, this is a perfect example. When you saute mushrooms, they get a deeper, darker brown, right? All mushrooms get a deeper, darker color. That's your vibrancy. They become much more fragrant. That's what you're looking for. Once they reach that stage, not only have you depleted the toxins, now you've released more antioxidants that are much more absorbable by the body. Okay. And mushrooms aren't foods I would ferment. The toxins within mushrooms, that's too sketchy. That is way too sketchy. So I wouldn't ferment those. There's a reason they're not fermented on a regular basis. But there are definitely medicinal properties found within all mushrooms, even button mushrooms. You're trying to go for organic, not mass produced mushrooms. So if you have a local provider through your farmer's market, through your neighborhood groups, get your mushrooms from these people. Okay. Because you'll have a mass amount, your antioxidant potential, the nutrients, micronutrients found within the mushrooms will have a greater volume, greater intensity, and a greater absorption rate. Okay. Or absorption ability. Let's change the wording. Absorption ability. All right. Cook it, get rid of those carcinogens, get rid of the toxins, make sure you're releasing all the antioxidants, get them fragrant, and then eat them. They taste phenomenal over a steak or even over a potato. So if you are vegan, you saute your mushrooms, put a little garlic in there, put a little spinach in there or kale, right? Saute it, toss your tomatoes in, and pour it over a potato. You guys, it's delicious. I don't like mushrooms, but it's delicious. I eat that one. All right, so we are going to talk about potatoes and legumes as one category. They're separate, but part of the reason you're cooking legumes and potatoes is to get rid of some resistant starch, which these foods are very difficult for our bodies to digest in raw forms, hence why they're always cooked. Um, and they're considered part of the anti-nutrients, which I'll link it below. I did a video a couple of months back about anti-nutrients and resistant starch. Potatoes and legumes are resistant starch foods. They're anti-nutrients. What that means is they're so difficult for our bodies to digest in raw form that any benefits they would provide us get washed out by the amount of work the body has to do to digest it. The only side caveat to that is that legumes can actually be sprouted, and the sprouts from legumes are very nourishing. They are very nutritious, but not the raw bean itself. Okay. So potatoes and legumes, you always want to cook those in raw forms or undercooked forms. They trigger GI upset. Okay. It's the whole resistant starch, difficult to digest. Your tummy is not happy if you're throwing foods at it that it can't easily digest. It doesn't want to work too hard. And when it does, that's when problems come up. All right. So Nicholas is bothering me today. So then the next one, we've got carrots, we've got celery, we got green beans. All right, those were the next three. And I'm categorizing these because they have the same benefits, even though I've listed them separately. Carrots, celery, and green beans, the nutrients found within them, the vitamins and minerals, are actually released to 3 times absorption. Okay, what that means is the vitamins and minerals found, like the beta carotene that's found in carrots, you get 3 times the amount when you cook them. And it can be as simple as steaming it real quick. Have you had carrot fries? Have you tried carrot fries in the air fryer yet? Here's the trick. Cut your carrots, okay? Fries. Rinse them all. Soak them if you want, so they get moisture inside of them. Dry them with a towel, right? Paper towel or a cheesecloth towel. Put them in your air fryer. Now, usually with carrots, the seasonings that work well are salt, pepper, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg. You could go savory and do a little Italian thing, get some basil and some rosemary in there so you get some cold fighting benefits. So you can go 2 different rounds. They are delicious, you guys. And I have had some people, I don't think so, but I've had some people actually say that the carrot fries taste very similar to sweet potato fries. So try them out. They're delicious. It's phenomenal. I have butternut squash fries that I got from the produce section. They put the ridges in it. Oh, delicious. I don't have a ridge knife yet, but they cut it for me, so I'm gonna let them do it. It makes my life much easier. Now, very last one was cruciferous foods: broccoli, cauliflowers, bok choy. Right? These foods release all of their healthy benefits when they are cooked, and you literally need 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Now, that doesn't mean they're fully cooked, but you need 2 minutes. A lot of times, steaming them or blanching them is the best way. I like roasting them in the oven. So good. What you can do is you can put, you make sheet pan meals, cook your potatoes or chop your potatoes up small enough that they cook at the same time frame as the vegetables. And it's 350 for about 20-25 minutes, and you get a nice char on the outside, but they're still a vibrant green and they're still crunchy, and they are just same thing as the asparagus. I'm going to tell you, do your olive oil, salt, pepper, and some garlic. So good, you guys. So good. Is there a difference in cooking methods between all of these? Really, you just don't want to boil them unless you're eating the water after. If the water is being used in your dish, or if the sauce that you're cooking is going to be used in your dish, then you're still maintaining the nutrients within the liquid. But for the most part, you want to minimize the amount of liquid that leaves the foods. You don't want to dehydrate them. You want to keep that moisture within them. But what you do want to do, and someone's really needy, what you do want to do is make sure that what happens when you eat those foods is that you're keeping as much moisture in there because that's going to hold on to all of all of the micronutrients. Kenzie, I gotta say goodbye. Yeah. Okay. Go back. Mm, mm, mm. Dude, sit, 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 sit. Yes. Doggies. Woo! Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Dog hair. Oh, gotta love labs. And we're coming up on shedding season. Whew. Okay. So that's everything I have for you guys today. So just keep in mind as you're looking at raw versus cooked, you want to look at what micronutrients you need the most from those foods. And it's not something you have to look at every single time. Look at your diet and say, okay, so half the time I want to eat raw, right? Dark leafy greens, things like that. I want to eat them raw. The other half of the time I want to eat them cooked. If you're making a sauce of some sort, toss in some dark leafy greens. Even if you puree them and include the water as well as the dark leafy greens, you are getting those micronutrients in it. You're getting the cooked version of them where they're able to be released. Okay. Because you still have the fibers in there, you have broken it down, but you haven't released the benefits yet. It has to be cooked to release them. All right. There's a lot of herbs that are very similar. It's why we have teas and infusions. But in, man, I still have, shedding dog, man. That is another that we'll talk about during another time. The herbs and the infusions and the teas we'll talk about at a different date because it's a whole other discussion. And truth be told, I could talk about that one for hours. Not going to, but I could. So just remember as you're going through these different foods, and let's go through these 10 just so you got them. Okay. We're going to summarize these and then I'm going to let you go into your and I'm going to go wipe my face down because my God, it's like that hair gets stuck in your nose and you just can't get rid of it. All right. So here they are again. You have dark leafy greens, you have asparagus, you have tomatoes, potatoes, legumes, carrots, celery, green beans, mushrooms, and cruciferous foods. Yes. All of these foods should be cooked at least for a few seconds, release the vibrancy of the flavor, release the vibrancy of the aroma, and release those colors. Eat in color, you guys. That's what this all boils down to is eat in color and make sure they are the most vibrant colors you can find. You can create a more vibrant color from a food just by cooking it for a second. Do it. All right. That is everything I have for you today. I will chat with you guys next week and throughout this week. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I hope the new year is starting you off well. All right. Cheers, you guys. Bye.